Are you okay? Yeah. Okay, well, I believe we are live. Welcome to the Cabinet on Wednesday the 22nd of July. In accordance, I'll have to do this bit first, by the way, just so everybody knows. Welcome to the meeting of the Cabinet. In accordance with the 2020 coronavirus regulations, this meeting is being held virtually to facilitate attendance and enable the consideration of important matters during the current COVID-19 situation. The meeting will therefore operate differently in that members of the Cabinet joining in remotely are still able to contribute and vote on any matter. I would ask all attendees tuning in to mute their microphones unless they have been invited to speak. If not, David can do it for you. If anyone wishes to speak, please use the hand up icon in the message bar or send a message using the message icon in the middle of the screen, indicating you wish to speak, and I will invite you in turn on your microphone, to turn on your microphone, at the appropriate point. When you are finished speaking, please remember to turn off your microphone again. Following questions and debate, in order to make a decision on the item, I will ask the Chief Executive to ask Cabinet members whether they are for, against the proposal or wish to abstain. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed via the Council website and will also be available to view by members of the public and press who are allowed to film by law. I'll read that again. Who are allowed by law to film, audio record, take photographs, blog or tweet at this meeting. Gosh, they can do all sorts, can't they? Before we start, can I welcome Councillors Alcock, Padder and Singh to their first meeting of the Cabinet as duly appointed Cabinet members. I have also made some changes to the executive portfolio holders. I will now ask all Cabinet members and scrutiny members present to introduce themselves in turn. I will start myself. I am Councillor Maria Crompton and I am the statutory Deputy Leader of the Council. Councillor Ali?
Yeah, Councillor Wasim Ali, Cabinet Member for Resources and Core Services.
Councillor Millard?
Councillor Millard, I am Cabinet Member for Inclusive Economic Growth.
Now, I did have a message from Councillor Alcock. Wasn't sure whether he'd be able to get here at this point. I don't know whether he's here. I can't see him. So we'll leave him for the moment. Councillor Hadley? She fell out. Councillor Joe Hadley? Okay.
Can't see her at all.
Okay. Councillor Padder? Oh, is that Joe copied in? No, Councillor Padder?
Councillor Padder, Cabinet Member for Community Engagement and Equality.
Lovely. Welcome. Councillor Shaheen?
Hi, Councillor Farah Shaheen, Cabinet Member for Living Healthy Lives.
Councillor Singh?
Councillor Radhvir Singh, Cabinet Member for Skills and Employment.
Welcome. Councillor Taylor?
Good afternoon, Councillor Jackie Taylor, Cabinet Member for Sustainable Transport.
Councillor Underhill?
Good afternoon, Councillor Joyce Underhill, the Cabinet Member for Best Start in Life.
And the scrutiny chairs, Councillor Lou Giles?
Councillor Luke Giles, Chair of Budget and Corporate Scrutiny Management Scrutiny Board.
Councillor Elaine Giles.
Apologies, Chair.
Have we got apologies? Oh, okay. Councillor Priest.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Councillor Liam Priest. I'm the Vice Chair of the Children's Services and Education Scrutiny Board.
I believe that Councillor Hadley's in the meeting.
Oh, okay. Councillor Hadley's in a meeting, so we'll leave that there. And Councillor Rollins.
Apologies.
And we have well, we not, are the apologies coming after the introductions? Maybe we should have the apologies in before the introductions in future. That might work better. Okay.
Chair.
Sorry, what was that? Okay, so have we got any other apologies? Well, I've got Councillor Moore written down here.
Yeah, Councillor Moore, Councillor Rollins and Elaine Giles.
Okay.
And Councillor Hadley is now with us.
She's held up, I think, as well, isn't she? Is she here now? Oh, yes, I can see. Yeah, Councillor Hadley, would you like to just introduce yourself, please, before we move on?
Councillor Joanne Hadley, Cabinet Member for Safer Communities.
Yeah, it's a new one yet, isn't it? We've got to get used to that one. Okay, so we move on to agenda item 2, the minutes. The minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of July 2020 are presented. I move them as a correct record. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ali?
Yes, second the meeting minutes.
Thank you. Are they approved?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, agenda item 3, members to declare any interest in matters to be discussed at the meeting. Does any member have any interest to declare?
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair, I would like to declare interest in item number 7 as I chair the working group.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else?
I will be participating in the debate and will not be voting on the matter.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to change the order of the agenda to enable agenda item 6 to be considered next. So we've got the 2019-2020 financial aid turn. Can I ask Councillor Ali to present the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Leader, for accommodating the change in the agenda. So I'm just going to quickly do a summary of the report. It is attached to the agenda and can be viewed on there virtually. So the overall revenue position of the Council for 2019-2020 was an underspend of approximately £1.813 million. This can be analysed as 1.548 million underspend across directorates, 0.292 million underspend on public health, and 0.027 underspend on central items. Public health is funded through a ring-fence grant, and therefore this underspend is requested to be added to their reserve. In terms of breakdown, all directorates have requested that Cabinet approve these underspends to be carried forward to 2020-2021, with the exception of adults who are requesting the underspend to be carried forward to 2021-2022. Resources are also requesting approval of revenue contribution to capital outlay of just over £1 million to spend to support the technology modernisation programme. This is already reflected in the figures in the table above, and underspend prior to this was 1.016 million. The reasons for the variations are outlined in the individual appendices for each directorate. These are summarised below as adults, overspend on placements offset by brought forward balances and vacancies, housing and communities, overspend on homelessness services offset by increased use of homelessness grants and vacancies within the corporate contact centre, regen and growth, overspent on property maintenance account offset by increased income and the use of one-off contingency balances from the previous year underspends, resources, overspend on law and governance, termination benefit offset by vacancies and delay on technology modernisation programme, and children's overspend on send transport offset for one-off funding. It is encouraging to note that the Council has once again delivered an underspend against its annual budget. However, it is important to note that there are some budget pressures that have been offset by carry forwards of funding sources that will not be available in 2020-2021. The main ones are the Send Transport, which is 2.7 million, PMA 1.2 million, and Law and Governance 1.1 million. Working on addressing these issues, so these delays has been put on hold because of COVID-19. A few more points to highlight. The general fund balance reduced by approximately £20 million to 0.064 million. This was due to planned uses, including directorate spending brought forward balances. Free balances remained relatively stable at 11.47 million, which equates to about 4.59% of net general fund expenditure. This is in line with the council's policy to hold free balances between 3 to 5%. Capital expenditure in 2019-2020 amounted to 121.998 million, a large proportion of which was within the HRA, and other significant projects were new schools and school refurbishments and the aquatic centre. The Treasury Management Outrun Appendix confirms that the Council has complied with its legislative and regulatory requirements. There were a minimum impact from COVID-19 on the outturn of 2019-2020, but this will obviously have a more significant effect on the 2020-21 budget and outturn position. Work is ongoing to quantify this. I forward the report to Cabinet.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Allen. Do we have any questions? No? Okay. In that case, we'll move to the vote. Can the Chief Executive call on each member, please?
Councillor Crompton, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Ali, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Hadley, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Padder, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Shaheen, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Singh, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Taylor, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Underhill, for, against or abstain.
For.
We have Councillor Alcock in the meeting yet? No, that's everybody.
Okay, thank you everyone. Everyone is in favour of the, so therefore the report is approved. So we move on to agenda item 4, additional items of business.
Chair, with your permission, is it okay if I leave the meeting now? As an engagement?
Yes, Wazim, I know you've got to go, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll say that again. Additional items of business, review of corporate office accommodation requirement, 1 Providence Place, West Bromwich. There is one additional item of business today. Can I ask Councillor Millard to present that report, please?
It helps if you press unmute, doesn't it? Thank you very much. Okay, firstly, I'd like to apologise. There is a small amendment to recommendation 1, which should read that the Cabinet declares 1 Providence Place surplus to the Council's office accommodation requirements. This report relates to 1 Providence Place, which is a council office building in West Bromwich Town Centre. As mentioned, the report seeks to declare the building surplus to the council's office accommodation requirements. The report demonstrates that the building is no longer required to meet the office accommodation needs of the council. Research undertaken in 2018 showed that the council had 2,528 full-time equivalent office-based workers that needed access to a workstation. If Providence Place was removed from the office portfolio, the council would still be able to provide some 2,526 workstations. However, the Workplace Vision Programme suggests that a desk ratio of 6 desks per 10 officers provides an ample accommodation to enable the majority of services to function at full capacity. Therefore, based on this ratio, the council office estate, excluding 1 Providence Place, could accommodate some 4,210 full-time equivalent officers, amply meeting the business need. In addition to that, COVID-19 has changed working practices, and it is expected that this will result in a further agile and home working plan. Other points to note are that BT, who occupy part of the building under a commercial lease, may vacate the premises next year as a result of moving all their office operations to Snowhill in Birmingham. Providence Place, being in the premier town centre of West Bromwich, lends itself to more reuse than other council buildings. In relation to staff, it is expected that staff will be reallocated to Council House Albury, and feasibility work on this has already begun pre-COVID-19. Should this report be approved, the next step would be to bring a further report to Cabinet in relation to the options for the future use of the building. Given everything I've said, I'd like to propose that the report is approved and that 1 Providence Place is declared surplus to the Council's office requirements, and that officers are authorised to investigate the most suitable future use of the building. I move the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we any questions? I can't see anything showing, so okay. Moving to the vote then, can the Chief Executive call on each member, please, for their for, against or abstain?
Thank you. Councillor Crompton.
For.
Councillor Ali. Councillor Millard.
For.
Councillor Hadley.
For.
Councillor Padder.
For.
Councillor Shaheen.
For.
Councillor Singh.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Councillor Underhill.
For.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone in favour, so that report is approved. So agenda item 5, the schools capital programme 2020, 2021, 22, 23. Can I ask Councillor Underhill to present the report, please?
Thank you. The purpose of this report is seeking Cabinet approval to allocate a total of 19.46 million from the Council's balances of basic need and school condition allocations received from the Department of Education to fund the next phase of the school's capital programme 2019-20 to 2021-22. This will enable the planned works to be completed at Bristol Hall Academy, Q3 Academy Langley and West Bromwich Collegiate Academy, and the ongoing maintenance at maintained schools. Projects at Q3 Academy Langley and the Bristol Hall Academy are further supported by the investment of a total of 1.3 million from each academy sponsor. By allocating this money, it will allow the council to actually create more secondary places that are in dire need within the borough. Over the last 8 years, we've actually created 5,000 primary school places, and the time's come now to create a lot more secondary places as the children move through the primary school. So this is a statutory duty on the council. So we actually need to make a move as quickly as possible to include the school places in the secondary sector. So I ask Cabinet to actually approve this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Underhill. Do we have any questions? I can't see anyone putting their hand up. Okay. In that case, I'll move to the vote. Can the Chief Executive call on each member, please?
Okay. Councillor Crompton, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Hadley, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Padder, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Shaheen, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Singh, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Taylor, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Underhill, for, against or abstain.
For.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone. Is in favour? So we'll move that report forward and that is approved. Okay, so agenda item 7, Youth Facilities Working Group. Can I ask Councillor Priest, Vice Chair of the Children's Services and Education Scrutiny Board, to present the report, please?
Good afternoon, Chair. Thank you very much for inviting me this afternoon. I don't propose to go through the report in forensic detail, as I'm sure you've all had a chance to read it at your leisure. As Councillor Singh said, he led this work as in his time as chair of the board. The work was also conducted by Councillor Chidley, Councillor McVitie and myself. The entire scrutiny board did have an input into this review as well, it ought to be noted, and members were very engaged in it. In terms of the context and why we undertook this work, we noted that the scrutiny board some years ago did undertake a review of our youth services and facilities. However, given the impact of austerity, we felt that it needed a refresh to assess our current state and where we might find the service in the future. So we began, as the report details, we did extensive evidence gathering, starting off with a desktop exercise, surveys of young people, forums with young people, parents and guardians and youth service workers themselves, and visits to our youth services, namely Conagry Arts Centre, and also individual visits taken out by members of the board to youth clubs and detached teams in their local area. I personally found these visits very informative and incredibly useful, and what struck me was the level of skill required amongst our youth workers. I think that many youth workers are in part-time jobs. They're not paid an enormous amount of money, but the amount of pastoral care they give to young people, particularly if they have young people accessing their services that are in vulnerable situations or in unstable home environments, they are often the people that the young people, that those service users go to for help, support, advice and care. So I'll whiz through the report onto its recommendations. Our headline recommendations you'll see under point 5.6 there. Young people, quite simple requests from young people. So somewhere dry and something with Wi-Fi, which you might guess of my generation and people younger. We definitely need the internet wherever we go. And then we have the headline asks from providers and partners, so around facilities, facility upgrades, capacity and age range, and the need to make sure our estate or the venues we're running these youth clubs in are accessible for all, which isn't always the case, as our estate is an ageing one, and it is something that needs further assurance. I think that wherever we do put in a youth club, everybody can get to it. And the messages from parents were communication and information, and they want their children to be happy and confident, which I'm sure all of us do want for our children. But I think on the communication and information, you'll notice in the report's recommendations that we have rarely shouted about what we do as a youth service and advertised the service that we offer, particularly in the places where young people will be. So I think in the future, what the scrutiny board is requesting that the executive look at is that when we do advertise our services, we look at things like social media to advertise, and we'll hopefully then find a lot more young people trying to access our service. So on to the recommendations once I scroll down to them. So we'll see recommendation 1 is a partnership framework to include the communications plan that I've just alluded to, and also a youth symposium. One of the engagement events we ran that was particularly successful was a Q&A session with scrutiny members and young people. The young people found, well, they told us they found that very, very useful, and it was good for them to learn what the role of a local councillor is, who we are, what does the council do, what relevance does it have for their life. And it was great for us to talk to them and listen to their stories and experiences as well. So we definitely want that to continue. As I've spoken about, recommendation number 2 talks about our facilities and what we offer. So the young people want a safe, flexible space of their own that is Wi-Fi and dry, and that is the basic offer we want in Sandwell. Now, I know that Councillor Ali earlier in the meeting alluded to our financial pressures as an authority. So I think the recommendation here is suggesting that the executive explore the possibility of shared spaces in community hubs, whether that be libraries or community centres where a number of council services operate from, but we can also have the youth service in there doing their job, either in the daytime or after hours in the evening as well, when a lot of young people are available and free to access the service. And giving young people a place to go in the evenings is particularly helpful for all sorts of reasons, not just for their safety and their engagement and keeping them occupied and engaged in a positive way, but also for the council as well, because it utilises our facilities 24/7 and makes sure we get value for money for that estate. Recommendation number 3 is around free and concessionary public transport for young people. Now, I understand with budgetary pressures this may not always be possible, but I think it is worth accessing or assessing the possibility of that, not just as a council, but perhaps as a combined authority as well. Sandwell could represent the board's views on that. Recommendation number 4 is a more strategic approach to funding. Again, that's mainly around our estate, but also our grants and how we fund youth services in the future. Members will all know that the youth service has suffered withering cuts over the last 10 years, not because of this council wanted to do that, but because we have ourselves had our resources cut by the government, and we've had to make some very difficult decisions. But I think there is space within the medium-term financial strategy to think more strategically about what we offer to young people. And really, that is about it, Chair. Thank you very much for your time. What I will add is just recommendation number 7, the question time session was particularly important. I'll emphasise that again, because I think as councillors, as individuals, we all found that really useful to engage with young people. So I'd like to see that continue. Also, there is residential centres mentioned in the report. They are really the jewel in the crown of our youth services. They are fantastic facilities, and I would hope to see them flourish in the future as well. But thank you very much, Chair. I don't think it's my job to move the recommendations. I'm not sure, as I'm not strictly a member here. But I will take any questions that are offered. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Priest. Councillor Underhill, do you have any comments that you would wish to make at this point?
Yes, please. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Scrutiny Board for all the work they have put into the review of the youth facilities. For all councils, it's been a particularly difficult time with ever-shrinking budgets that we've had. But in Sandwell, we have managed to provide facilities for our young people. And we're also proud of the hard work and dedication of the youth workers that we have in Sandwell, and their commitment throughout the COVID-19 lockdown has been exemplary. I think I needed to say that because they do need a thank you for what they've actually done. It's up to me as the portfolio holder to take away the report, to consider the 7 recommendations from the Scrutiny Board, and to report back to them, I believe, in 2 months with our views on the recommendations, on what we consider to be what we can actually provide in the future for our young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Underhill. Have we any questions?
Councillor Millard.
I think Councillor Millard just put his hand up quite vaguely in the background there. Did you want to ask something, Councillor Millard?
If you excuse me, Chair, it's less of an ask, it's more of a comment. I'm fairly sure I'm allowed to comment. Firstly, I want to thank Councillor Priest because obviously I'm a professional youth worker myself, so I could tell from what he was saying that he seems to have had an understanding of the grasp of the skills that it actually takes to work with young people, and it's not as simple as just opening up a building and standing around making sure they're not messing around. It is about engaging, it is about wanting to be part of something and taking ownership of that something. So I'm really pleased that was identified. I actually also want to kind of add to what Joyce said, which is actually we deserve a hell of a lot of credit in Sandwell. We've managed to maintain an open access youth service, obviously not as big as we would like it to be, but the fact that we're still offering open access service is amazing, and it actually deserves a lot of credit. There are a hell of a lot of councils across the country that no longer have a youth service. So we can hold our heads up with pride and say, this is what we're doing. And I've actually been out myself with the youth workers in Sandwell, and it is really good to see that in places like, well, I went out on the youth bus in Tipton, and the young people were running up, engaging with the workers. They knew their names, they were chatting away. They were like, are you here next week? And the youth workers go, no, we'll be here in a fortnight. You know what time we come. They're really excited to see youth service and see the youth service team, and that it shows the quality of the work that's going on. And finally, just to comment, I know Councillor Priest mentioned about using other buildings. From my youth work background, I can see there are challenges with that. Certainly, in terms of young people want their own space and they want to own it and make it theirs. So when you're using a community building or a library, it feels like you're just there for that night, and then it's not yours. There's no ownership. When there's no ownership, there's no responsibility. So if it's theirs, then they own it and they feel responsible for it. I used to manage a youth club, and my young people, it was their youth club. It wasn't mine. I just managed it for them and made sure that their behaviour was acceptable, and there was challenges for them to do, and they learned skills and they developed knowledge. And then the great thing about youth work is actually those young people who sometimes struggle in school